welcome to The Hanged Man in the Moon. In the previous video, I talked about manifestation, how things move from the non-physical, the spiritual, into the physical realm, into our daily experience. Today I would like to focus more on living an intentional life. What does that look like? What does it feel like? How can we imagine it? So I'd like to pose a question. What does living an intentional life mean to you? Do you perhaps think of it as making decisions and making those decisions become reality? Well, that's not really living an intentional life, that's living decisively. Now, making decisions, causing those decisions to manifest, which is fine. It's a wonderful way to live, and many people get a lot of joy, or at least a lot of happiness or satisfaction living that way. And it's all good. However, it's not really living an intentional life. Now, living intentionally is different. And let's talk about that. Intention. A lot of times our intentions are most clearly, most strongly manifested in some of our darkest times. It's often in those times when we know that this is what we don't want that we recognize what we really do want. We recognize the relationships we want. We recognize the kind of environment we want to live in, perhaps the kind of job or the kind of creative expression we want to engage in. Those dark times can be our greatest teachers and clarifiers. So, in those dark times, in those structures crumbling times, we sometimes find great clarity. But it's not an automatic process, yeah? Because when structures are crumbling, when things seem to be falling apart, we also often, I know do, fall apart emotionally. That's why we call them dark times. They're not the bright, happy times, but the dark times. And to be able to live an intentional life, we need to be able to move from those dark times into a feeling of happiness and joy. Because living intentionally is an emotional journey more than it is a task-oriented journey. It's an emotional journey. So, let's imagine this. Yeah? Let's imagine you've had a crumbled, structures crumbling experience. A relationship is broken up, you've lost a job, or maybe not something as serious. Maybe you've had an argument with a friend, or a creative project that you're working on is just not working. You feel stuck. So in those times, we need to be able to move forward out of it. And first step would be to have a way to release the resistance, release the negative feelings that we have. And if we can move into that neutral state of, if not joy, at least less resistance or less upset, we might get a glimmer, a sense of hope. We might get an inkling of optimism. And that can grow to a beginning sense of purpose, a renewal, if you will. Maybe not full-on inspiration, but at least a bit of inspired feeling, yeah? Something that will draw us back up out of the mire, be able to take the next step from our traumatic or negative experience and move with the flow of our intentions, which we've already set. We set the intentions when we noticed what we didn't want and then realized what we do want. The intention was set. we need to follow it, to flow with it. And that sense of hope, that sense of optimism is the first step, the first stage, the first indication that we are moving with the flow of our intention. And as we start moving in that direction, we'll notice that we'll start wanting to take action. We'll start wanting to do things. We'll get the sense of that moving forward, which is the second indication that we are moving in the flow of our intentions. The desire to act, the desire to do things, the sense of motion will return. And that's a great step. In that motion, we'll begin to start regaining our love for life, which we might have lost. We might discover new creativity. We might even discover new relationships with friends, co-workers, but also perhaps new love relationships, new love interests will begin to sparkle in our lives. That's the first step of manifestation, if you will. Yeah, things will begin manifesting. They might be financial opportunities. You might discover that you're interested in developing new skills, or you might discover new skills developing naturally within you. Better communication skills, better artistic skills, better ability to express and receive love, to express and receive generosity, to express and receive abundance. Because the next step is giving and receiving. Yeah? Living an intentional life is not a one-person act. All of our lives are co-creations. And all of our lives, when they're flowing naturally, are a process of giving and receiving. Yeah? Giving and receiving resources, attention, information, giving and receiving. Sharing the wealth, if you were. And that wealth is not always financial, though it can be. That wealth can be time. It can be, again, emotion. It can be interest. Now, our generosity grows. The more we receive, the more we want to give. And then we might notice that we start moving away from the common stream of life. We might start acting somewhat impulsively. We might have opportunities to act spontaneously, more spontaneously than we did when we started this journey at least. And people might look at us and think that we are being impulsive, that we're not following the rules, that we're not doing what everybody else is doing, and that's a good thing. If you start noticing people looking at you saying that, you know, you shouldn't be doing this, or this shouldn't be happening to you, or, you know, we don't do it this way, that's a good sign. That's a very good sign. It's a sign that you are now following your own inner voice. And you're doing things your own way, the way your greater self, your eternal self and your physically manifested self in alignment want to do. That's following the flow of intention. It's an act of surrendering. It's an act of surrendering, letting go to the process, the flow of intention. And in letting go, you'll find new perspectives. You'll see new ways of approaching things. You'll find new ways of relating to people. You'll perhaps find new people that you never would have thought of relating to in the past are now interesting to you, are now exciting to you. And that new perspective will increase your sense of positivity, your sense of fun, your playfulness. You'll have a more sustained sense or feeling of warmth. You'll feel success, but you'll also feel vitality. You'll feel more energy to do things that you want to do. That attainment that you have achieved will not be draining you, oh my God, I've accomplished so much, but will inspire you to do more, to move forward. The flow of intention gives energy. The more we succeed, the more energy we have. Yeah? The process of determination and working and struggling drains our energy. The flow of intention gives us energy. It gives us a new childlike perspective on the world. Yeah? A childlike view of the world as an amazing and new and inspiring place full of things to discover and things to be dazzled by. And as we live this way, as we feel this growing sense of vitality, of warmth, of positivity, we might begin to feel a stronger inner awakening, an inner calling. It might reveal itself in epiphanies of realizations, perhaps spiritual realizations. Perhaps you'll feel the call of God or Source or whatever you think of as your creating spirit, Divine Mother. You might feel that voice more strongly in yourself than you have ever felt it before. You'll feel the power of your intuition, and perhaps a sacred knowledge that you've always had but is now accessible to you. Yeah, we all have sacred knowledge. We all have intuition. The challenge is that we are not allowing ourselves to have access to it by our emotional state, by our lack of emotional spiritual strength, which is not saying that we're doing something wrong, but that we're resisting it. We'll have more use of our subconscious minds. And heck, we might even get premonitions. I don't get them yet. 100% real. I'm not precognizant, but some people say that they do experience these kinds of premonitory visions once they have opened themselves that much to the flow of intention. Yeah? Our energy will increase, our passion will increase. We will be acting, but inspired action rather than diligent action. We'll have a sense of adventure in the world. Everything, or most things, almost everything, will be an adventure for us because it's new, it's vital. We'll have that childlike experience of the world. And again, others may look at us and say that we're being impulsive, impetuous, perhaps not irresponsible, but not following suit, not following form. And that's good. That's a good thing. Following your inner voice is the way to lead an intentional life. And then we can also experience the celebration of manifesting the life that we want. The manifestation is not an end goal. The manifestation is not a conclusion. There is no conclusion. There is no end goal. The celebration is the celebration of the process, of the journey, the joy of moving forward and enjoying the moving forward. It's the relaxation into the flow of our intentions. And in that state of relaxed flow, of following and celebrating the movement forward with intention, we will feel more prosperous. And the more prosperous we feel, the more prosperous we will be. The more prosperous we are, the more prosperous we will feel. And these things begin to cycle and grow and build upon themselves as we manifest and the lives that we want, as we flow towards the lives that we are creating. Because we're always creating. There is never an end goal. And there will still be negative times. There will be negative events, large and small, that things that we think that we don't want, but we will learn from them more easily. We will recover from those blows more quickly and not be knocked down for the count as we had been in the past, as I have been in the past, for example. We'll be able to recover and move on and learn and grow even more from those negative events. And we might even come to a point where we can appreciate those negative events because of how much they help us to grow. Have you felt this kind of cycle of achievement or activated intention in your life before? I have. Not consistently, and not fully. I'm still growing. I'm still learning. I'm still discovering. But have you felt at least some of these stages or the beginnings of this process of release to the flow of intention in your life before? If you have, what did that look like? What did it feel like? Because feeling is the indicator, is the best sign of how we are doing, how we are flowing with our intentions. Inventions too, but intentions. How do you think this can apply? If you have or have not experienced parts of this cycle, how do you think it could apply to you in your life? How do you think you can move towards it? And how do you think you can shift directions away from perhaps a determined life to an intentional life? I'm curious, what do you think? Yeah? So, friends, this is the end of this discussion. And I'd like to hear from you. I'd also like you to hit the like button and subscribe, but I'd like to hear your comments. I'd like to hear what you think in the comments below. And friends, now and always, I wish you the joy of an intentional life, just as I wish myself the same joy for an intentional life. And I wish you love, joy, well-being, and clear awareness. Thank you.